So here's my little research update on how it's going looking into Hunter S. Thompson's literary career. It's going pretty well, better than I would have imagined. I found some pretty good books, pretty good articles, some interesting NPR reports, since he only died back in 2005, which isn't too long ago considering some of the other writers. But I've actually enjoyed kind of looking into his life and seeing his perspective on like how we should approach journalism and nonfiction and how we should kind of tell stories about our present society. So I'll start by talking about like the books I found that have been really good, and then talk about the articles I found that are really good, because I found a lot, but there's some that are like perfect. This is all we have in our library, which isn't a great selection. The only book we have by him is his autobiography that he wrote later in his career in 2003, and he committed suicide in 2005. So that was interesting that we don't have like his Hell's Angels book. I would have liked to have been able to pull that off the shelf. And then there's this book that has like a small piece about him on how he relates to this whole idea of participatory journalism and like how he takes it to the extreme, because he's not only participating, he's making himself the story. But he does have a section in this Encyclopedia of American Journalism that is pretty good, that has a nice little section detailing kind of quick little overview of his literary career, and then giving you some options to look for further readings, which I noticed this William McKean guy I had seen while I was ordering other books from Interlibrary Loan, which turns out I ordered 2 books from him. One is more of like biography style about Hunter S. Thompson, which was written more recently in 2008. Like, let's tell you about his life, and kind of like a storyteller version that you'd want like more people to read. But the one that he wrote in the 1990s focuses more on like his literary career and style and criticism, which has been really useful, and also quoted a lot in the other books that I found that have been more recently published, and also in the articles. So I was like, wow, this was a good one to find. Plus it's in this encyclopedia, so obviously a good source. I also found this book, Gonzo Republic, which I've actually read a lot of because it's provided a lot of good information. It was written in 2012, which is pretty recent for the conversation based around Hunter S. Thompson. It's definitely looking a lot into the whole idea of like how gonzo journalism is the like fusion of fiction and reportage and like journalism, and seeing like how he did create this big image for himself, but does that overshadow his writing, or does it bring more out his writing? And looking at the like relationship between like objectivity in journalism and subjectivity, and how he strove to like bring more out subjectivity and thought that objectivity wasn't possible, so he's like, why even try? Which he based on a lot of his idea of, he looked up a lot to Faulkner in his writing. So the whole idea of Faulkner saying like the best fiction is more true than any kind of journalism, and like journalists have always known that, and he was like, well, I'm going to follow that, and that's true, so I'm going to write my journalist this way. Which is a lot of what this is talked about, is a lot of his writing and looking at more his writing than like his persona of like, he did this and he did that and he did all these drugs. So that's been really good to look at to see what the current conversation is. Also, this article, which I got recently from ILL, has been good because it talks about how the conversation has changed, where it went from like, yeah, basically in 2005 when he died, like, he lived this crazy life and he was this big crazy guy, but was he more of an icon in himself or more of an icon in his writing? And people were saying more, leaning towards more the persona, but he said there was a switch back in 2010 of like, maybe we should look more into his like literary journalism style and see the creative strategies there and see how he created his own rhetorical strategy, and let's look deeper into that, which is what other articles that I posted from, or that I found from more recent dates are talking about, especially like this one is looking more into like the style and like the different rhetoric and what this style like allows for him to have and present to his readers, and how it's a journey for the readers and for him. But also looking at basic biography information has been good, especially in The Lion, to see like how his life contributed to how he thought of his style, and how that attributed to like his person and why he kind of became the person he became. Also looking at like NPR reports after he died to see what people said about him were interesting to apply to that side of the conversation, where they're saying like maybe he was more of his person than his writing that we care about, which I disagree with, which which is what I would like to talk about. And then there's this online book that I have been looking at. Where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? It's called Gonzo Text, and this is really looking at his writing, and it's like kind of one of the first books that mainly focuses on his writing more than like here's his biography and then how that played into his writing. This is like, let's look at his writing and see what it's about. So I found that really useful, looking into the conversations and relating it to other articles that I found. I'm still looking for stuff, but so far it's going pretty good. And I like what I'm hearing, and I like the different sides that I could talk about in this upcoming paper. So, thank you!